I see people just living this small, little, closed off life, and I know from personal experience that there is so much more. It can be so much more fulfilling. Hello everyone, and welcome to my channel. My name is Andrea, and today I'm going to talk to you about where I am now. It gives you an insight into myself and my YouTube channel. So where am I on my journey? That's a very good question. All I can tell you is I am a long way from where I started, but I'm also a long way from where I'd like to be. I am still exploring myself, figuring out more things that bring me joy, happiness, how to deal with stress and anxiety. I am also still exploring the world. I am still living abroad, being open to different cultures and meeting different people. And I am also looking at different options for places to live, different things I want to do with my career. What I can say is that my life now is peaceful, happy, and calm, which I would have never been able to say when I first started this journey. How did I get here? Well, it came from a lot of hard work, the will to get better, and personal accountability. I really wish I could tell you there was an easier way to get there, but for me, it was full of ups and downs and definitely not easy. I don't want to put myself out there as somebody who has everything figured out because that's not how I feel. I'm still on the journey, but I can see such huge strides in my progress. And I think I can be an inspiration to others who are really struggling and trying to figure out where to start. The other thing is, I am not saying that I think everybody should live their life the way that I am. I do not think that at all. Every person has different passions and interests, and that so many times we are pushing all of these things aside to fit in with the culture, with our family, or to not feel like we're standing out. And I personally believe following those things, that will lead us to the path where we can find happiness and fulfillment. When I see so many things that are going on, social media, the news, everything that's going on, it really makes me feel very sad because I see people just living this small, little, closed off life. And I know from personal experience that there is so much more. It can be so much more fulfilling. There is just such a freedom when you live your life based on your own values, morals, and ideas, and don't live based on other people's. For me, this starts with work. I think I would have an extremely hard time going back to the US and trying to get any kind of normal job. Because, to be honest, I don't care that much. I am at work to make money, to be able to live my life. My job is not my life. My idea is to work the least possible to be able to support the lifestyle that's going to bring me happiness and joy. Of course, if it's something I'm passionate about, then I will do more. But when I hear bosses say, "Do you want to move up? Don't you care about this job?" Nope, I really don't. I don't want to move up. I don't really care about this job that much. I also see so many people putting off the things that they want to do. I'll do it when I'm retired, or I'll do it in 5 years, or when the kids are older from living abroad. And I used to think this was so morbid, but now I've really changed my opinion, is that us in Western cultures many times take for granted that we are going to have tomorrow a retirement time, that we still will be able to do all of these things when the kids are out of the house. And where I've been living, whenever they talk in the future tense, they will also say, "is God willing." So if I say to a friend, "I'll see you next week," they'll say, "God willing." And I used to think, oh my gosh, but I just realized that this puts things into perspective of we don't know that. We hope and we assume if we're young, if we're healthy, but we are really taking advantage of this idea that we will have all this time ahead of us. As dark as it sounds, that just maybe won't be the truth. I got to the point where I just couldn't wait anymore. I wanted to travel abroad. I was waiting for somebody to come with me, and it just wasn't happening. I decided when I was turning 30 that this is something I needed to do for me. And so I just went with a traveling group. But I didn't know anybody on that group, and I just decided I'm giving myself this gift that I always wanted, and so I went. This was the best thing that could have happened for me. Being open-minded, looking into cultural norms that I saw in different countries, and it wasn't necessarily that I was right and they were wrong. It was just a difference. It also opened me up to talking to people from all different places. Locals where I was traveling, other travelers. And we really started to get into some deep conversations and really exploring a lot of different topics that I wouldn't have normally talked about at home. I love talking about all this stuff. And when you travel solo, it also really pushes your limits. You just have to figure it out. It really comes down to you and you solving your own problems. And this can be very scary, but once you do it, it really shows you how strong and capable you are in these situations. So this was huge for me because I was really doubting myself when I started, and it just gave me a huge confidence boost. And don't get me wrong, I had a couple of breakdowns along the way, but that's part of it. It's you cry, you let it out, you realize, all right, I got to do it, and then get back up and do it. I also got what I would consider a fresh start. So the people I was meeting as I traveled were just meeting me for the first time. So I got to see how people would react when they didn't have already this previous thought process about me or the things that I had done in my past. And it was really shocking to me. Wow, people actually like me. I can get along with a lot of different people. I'm able to have these intellectual conversations. And that was huge for me. I've really changed in my life is that I am completely done with the drama. I don't have friends in my life that bring drama or that bring me down. And I used to thrive and really love this. I would be open to a relationship, but I'm just not going to put myself in a situation or be with somebody that makes my life harder or worse for me. And sadly, this is all that I found. And until I find someone who brings that into my life, I'm just not into being in a buffer relationship. I can't find someone if I'm with somebody else, even if it's just for the convenience or to have someone there. So I find it much better to be alone, to work on myself, to become more the person that I want to be. That way I attract a person that's more how I. With friendships, I am also not going to guess or chase people to find out what's wrong with them, if they're angry with me, if they're offended, anything like that. I really believe that we are all adults and that we need to behave that way. So I try to be open and honest with my friends about what I'm going through, and I really hope that they are also able to do the same. But all of this drama and like, no, I'm not mad, but I won't talk to you and all of that stuff, I just don't have time for it anymore, and this has made such a difference in my friendships. Gaslighting, that is termination of any friendship or relationship. So I know what you said, you know what you said. By you lying to me, that's not going to make me believe that what I know happened is now some mysteriously wrong. I trust my judgment. I know what I heard. I know what I saw. That's the end of the story. And for me, I do find this as a manipulation tactic. And I don't doubt myself. I know what happened, and I'm going to stick with that. I am a healing people pleaser. It was very hard for me to talk about topics if I knew the person didn't agree with me, if I thought it might offend them, anything like that. And now that is not how I operate. I'm going to talk about what I feel strongly about. And if that makes people not like me or not be around me, well. But when I silence myself, I do not feel good about that. And I feel like I'm betraying myself and the situation. I feel that good, honest people with integrity have been silent for way too long. We don't want to upset people, get in an argument, things like that. But now is too important of a time to be sitting quiet. It is time for people to stand up and really start sharing our opinions and not being scared to speak out. For me, it doesn't matter the topic. Politics, religion, relationships, I'm going to talk about it. If you give somebody else the respect and they are respecting you back, having these deep conversations are some of the best conversations. I already know what I believe and why I believe that, so I don't need somebody to keep telling me the same thing over and over again. What I want and need is somebody to give me the opposite point of view. Things that I didn't think about before, or to hear somebody else's completely different point of view and see maybe some of the things that they're talking about I can agree with, or vice versa. I remember dating somebody. We started talking about politics, and he says, politics aren't very interesting for us to talk about. And I really had to stop and say, maybe they're not interesting for you to talk about, but they are very interesting for me. So we don't need to use a we statement here. I have gotten in many heated discussions with family and friends about topics that we were both passionate about and we were on different sides. But as long as we can stay calm, there's usually a way to find a little bit of common ground. I find that this happens quite often. If you believe in what you're talking about and you actually have some good talking points, there's no need to resort to petty name calling and bullying. I found is very important is to be open-minded. So as you can tell, I have some pretty strong opinions, but I also like to be shown things that I either didn't think of or I didn't know, hear about, stuff like that. If I get new information and it makes sense to me and I look into it, I am definitely open to changing my mind about things, and I have done this many times before. If you watched my other videos, you know how I feel about social norms, and because it was so strong, I really felt like this is what I felt with my morals and my values. It wasn't until I got away from like the people, the situation, the place, and really started exploring that I realized these were not actually my viewpoints many of the times at all. It was just what I had heard and started repeating to fit in with those around me, but it wasn't what I believed. I have been teaching English as a second language online. Since my students are learning English, we can talk about a wide variety of topics. Doing this, I have got to explore topics that I would have never picked, but they're actually pretty interesting. I also think open-mindedness and learning empathy go very well together, because when you are willing to put yourself in someone else's shoes and really think about the situation from their viewpoint, this gives me a completely different perspective. You can really learn something, and especially about yourself. It's easy to judge, but when you think about what you would do in that situation, you might realize that you would probably be doing the exact same thing that they are. I try to own my mistakes. Again, this is a story from the past. So when I have long breaks, I will try to sleep in between students. During one of these breaks, I fell asleep and I didn't wake up for my classes. So when I woke up, I realized I missed 4 classes. And my first instinct was to go in there, write some kind of excuse about, oh, there was a problem with the internet, I couldn't get connected, why I couldn't go to the class. And then it just hit me. Why would I lie about this? I'm human. I made a mistake. I'm doing the best I can by teaching overnight. So I just wrote that. I'm very sorry. I overslept for the class. Everybody was very nice and understanding in this situation. If I was doing it all the time, obviously it would be a different situation. But that's why I think having integrity, being a good person, or trying your best really does pay off. When you make small mistakes, they are much more willing to forgive you and just move on. The other part is, we think if we make up these little excuses that it's going to get us out of this hard conversation. Everybody knows that you're not being honest. Just because they don't say anything doesn't mean that they can't see right through it. I try to learn and then just do better next time. If I forgot plans with a friend, I apologized and I realized I need to put it in my calendar because I couldn't remember it. Or for the students, next time I need to set an extra alarm. It's just all about trying to be a little bit better the next time and not punishing ourselves so much. We can be so hard, talk to ourselves worse than we would to any other person. So I had someone give me this advice. When we do something we're embarrassed or ashamed of, just think, how would I feel if my friend did it? I would think, I wanted to see you, but not a problem. We'll catch up another day. It's not an issue. That's what we need to do with ourselves. Just realize we're human, we make mistakes, and we're going to try to do better the next time. I try to look at reality. Not what I wish, want, or hope that things would be, but what it is. The only way that I or anybody can come up with a solution or fix problems is if we actually know what they are. We can't be fixing things that we won't acknowledge. This used to really stress me out, knowing that I wasn't going to be good at something or I was going to have to work really hard on something. But now I can look at it as a puzzle. I can try this. If this doesn't work, let me try this and do these things, and it starts to become a little exciting when I do it this way. I really try to think for myself using common sense and also just looking at the simplest answer, which is usually the right one. This is a lost art. If I can picture myself in the situation and think of what I would do, I think by human nature, most of us are pretty similar. So, for instance, if somebody lies to me but then says, I had nothing to hide, if I put myself in their situation and think, why would I lie about this if I had nothing to hide? I wouldn't. And so then I can probably have my answer. People will say all the time, oh, I don't know who's lying, who's telling the truth. I feel like this is a little bit of a cop-out because it can be pretty obvious if you watch, not just listen to what people say, but actually watch what their actions are. And the last thing that is a priority now is taking care of myself. Physically, I have started to eat better. I do Pilates. This for me is both physically and mentally extremely helpful and healthy. I walk a lot. Just getting outside, getting some fresh air, getting some exercise. I feel like what I put in my body and getting my body moving makes a huge difference for me. And then mentally is also so important. I try, with the Pilates also comes meditation, but I also try to do just some meditation by myself. I had done a lot of therapy, which was super helpful for reading. Now reading really helps me. It calms me. And also just talking, being open with my friends that I'm close to, letting them know how things are really going, checking in. And Especially when I was at my lowest point, I was really willing to do anything that it took and see what would work. I was not afraid to try anything just because I was at that place of desperation. And I feel so many times people will judge, like, okay, well, how is what you're doing right now working? If you go to therapy a few times and it doesn't do anything for you, okay, at least you tried it. If you read some self-help books and you don't get anything interesting out of them, again, what was it that you had to put into it? If we want to see results in our life and get to a place where we are healthier, we must be willing to make ourselves uncomfortable, go through things that really push us, because that's the times we grow. That's when we find out more about ourselves, whether it's the good or the bad. Of course, when you're just living in reality, if there are things that you want to change, they're still there whether you acknowledge them or not. But by acknowledging them, you can realize, oh, it's not that scary. I can see what it is and I can work on changing that. If we keep ignoring, we're not going to change it. But if we're honest with ourselves, we definitely can. That's the thing with work and perseverance. You can change pretty much anything that you want, unless it's out of your control, by just making that decision and working through it. Of course, the process will probably be slow. It takes a lot of work, but you will get there. That's a little bit about me. It kind of tells you a little bit about my channel. I do want to get into some deep topics. I really want to talk about personal growth and just trying to find some solutions for things that we have going on now, not just for ourselves, but also with our country, in the world in general. Again, not being afraid, coming together to share our beliefs, having some tough conversations. If you don't agree with me on everything, or if you don't agree with me at all, that is completely fine. I still think we can get something from each other. Thank you guys so much again for joining my video. It really means a lot to me. And if you haven't already, please like this video and subscribe. It goes a long way to supporting my channel. Thank you and have a great day.